Welcome once again to another edition of Banter. I'm old.
I'm bald.
And I'm Brian.
Brian,
Not
welcome. Welcome. So we haven't had a guest in a little while, and it's exciting for us to get somebody on here who probably knows about as much about nothing as we do.
Oh, I know about nothing.
This is going to be a fun episode. We're going to go a little bit more into music, generally speaking.
Ooh.
Pretty entertaining.
I think this episode, more than most, I just want to once again throw out the disclaimer that we are not experts
at anything.
So we're just going to roll with that assumption, and everyone, if you disagree with us, that's too bad, because we're probably wrong too. So
likely. All right, Mr. Bald, you're up next. This week's is all yours. Let me get my clock ready. I haven't been prepared for this, so let me pull it up here. And I want to make sure that you get your full allotment of time. Are you going to need it this week?
I don't know if I'm going to need the full allotment of time, but I think I have a very relatable rant. I think it's going to be relatable.
Wow, that doesn't happen very often. All right, sir, you are on the clock. Begin.
All righty. So, recently, I had made the decision that I was going to go to Menards and I was going to buy backup light bulbs for my kitchen lighting. So, in my kitchen, there's a chandelier of sorts, not a rich man's chandelier, a poor man's chandelier, 5 candle-shaped bulbs. So, in the entire time I've lived in this apartment, which has been just over, like a year and a half now, there have been 2 of those 5 light bulbs out, and I have just never decided to buy those light bulbs. So I'm seeing judgment, but just hold on, that's not the rant. Okay? So point is, go to Menards. Not sponsored, but go to Menards. I pick up some light bulbs. Okay? I buy 6 light bulbs because I'm like, you know what? These are going to go out at some point in the future. I'm going to have some backups. So I come back. I turn on the light to see which 2 are the ones that need to be replaced. Turn on the light. As I turn it on, a 3rd one blows right in front of my eyes. What are the sheer odds of that? So I replaced 3. Now I only have 3 backups. Okay. The next day, turn on the light again. Boom. I can hear this one go out. It like pops, and I'm like, Art, what the hell is going on here? So I meant to have 4 backup bulbs. Now I only have 2. Why is it that light bulbs go out in like a week or they last 10 years? Okay. Everyone probably has that one light in their house, like a bathroom light or, a porch light maybe, that just you've replaced the thing like 100 times. And you're like, aren't light bulbs supposed to last 7 to 10 years now? Like, that's really frustrating. The other thing is, when it's in my apartment, I typically think to myself, I'll replace that eventually. Hence the 1.5-year light bulb thing. But it is for some reason, very hypocritical pet peeve of mine. When I'm in someone else's house and I'm like, seriously? Like, just change your light bulb. What is wrong with you people? Like, this is just so lazy. But anyway, I will spend a fortune in my lifetime on light bulbs that go out in a matter of weeks rather than the 7 years that they're supposed to last. And that especially is relevant like Christmas time, when Christmas lights that you pull out and they're, used them for a few weeks last year. Now you pull them out this year and none of them work. Oh, is one of the bulbs out, ruining it for everything? It's like, we got to do better with this technology. We can fly around the world in a day and like we can't get a light bulb to stay on. It's just too bad. That's all I have. Let's move on.
Okay. Moving on. I will say that it was relative to me because before this episode, I changed one of those light bulbs. You might notice it's brighter in my room than it normally is. I had to, yeah, one of them went out after the last episode. So we got a light bulb issue we need to fix.
There's one thing about our show, it's that it's relatable.
It is. It's always relatable to someone, somewhere. Mr. Brian, and thank you. Sorry, I'm Brian. Thank you for being on the show. I'm curious to know your background, non-background on music. Do you have a musical background?
I have a listening to music background, not any kind of a music background. I think back in like third grade, we did some like listening sound tests, I remember, and everyone in the grade had to do it. And they basically told me that I wouldn't be good at like any of the instruments. That's all I remember from that.
Oh, you know what they say is if you can't do, coach, teach.
Yeah.
So you should teach piano lessons.
You should.
Ooh, there you go.
That's a good idea.
Arpeggio, right? That's what Bo Burnham says. Just say the big words and then you'll
Yeah.
think what you're talking about.
That's how it works.
Arpeggio.
Yeah. So in order to prepare for this episode, I mean, I spent hours really studying this by listening to music, much like you do. But I'm going to date myself because I am old, as you can see. I have this wonderful device here, this iPod. See, it's even making lots of sound because it keeps coming. The cord doesn't quite work. Awesome.
It still works. Why would I throw it away?
Why would I throw it? It's exact. This should be in my bag. Another addition. Sometimes it is. Usually it's in my truck. I have it plugged into anyway. So I have this. So I have iTunes, and I decided to just randomize everything and then hit next to see what the top like 5 to 10 songs were that came up. And I have a relatively eclectic mix. So I'm going to tell you the first 5 songs and we'll see if you're surprised or not. And we'll discuss.
Mm-hmm.
The first song was Crazy by Aerosmith.
Mm.
It's a legitimate song. It's a good song. Also within that song, if you didn't know, his daughter played was one of the main characters in the music video. What is her name? Right? She was in a bunch of movies and stuff too. She was in, what was that movie where they fly to the crater and they're going to like put a nuclear bomb on it or up onto an asteroid?
Oh, you know, that one talkie they had back in the day with, what is that? That one that Mary Shelley wrote or something? I don't remember.
Mary Shelley, really? Anyway, next song you never heard of. The song's called Black River by Amos Lee. He's gotten a little more famous recently.
Amos Lee. I know one song by him. It was in a commercial.
It is in a commercial. Sweet Pea. I've sang that to my daughter before. It's a great
Good
song.
song.
Next, Down Low by R. Kelly.
Mm.
May have heard that one. That was like
That's controversial.
very controversial one.
Yeah.
We're going to move on from that. Love Bites, which is perfectly ordered from Down Low into Love Bites by Def Leppard. Good stuff. And then finally, Busta Rhymes called Live to Regret from the musical soundtrack to Set It Off.
Ooh.
Okay.
First 5.
So
Good mix.
it's a good mix, you know. You know who else is a Def Leppard fan?
Who?
That one guy who plays the main character in Balls of Fury, the ping pong movie. For some reason, that movie's also centered around him being like the world's biggest Def Leppard fan. No, just me.
Do you enjoy Def Leppard, or at some point in your life did you, or no? You guys are young.
I've enjoyed a couple Def Leppard songs, but
So
Yeah.
are you aware of part of the Def Leppard story of their drummer only has one arm?
No.
no.
Right. So early on in their career together, he had 2 arms, played, awesome, was great, great drummer. And then he got into a car accident and lost his arm in the car accident. He had to relearn how to play the drums with one arm. And so an extra pedal, so you could actually play with that too. But it's really cool to watch. You can watch on like, pull it up on YouTube, any like Def Leppard old stuff. And the guy's just got one arm on the drums. It's pretty awesome.
That's awesome.
Never would have seen that coming. Well, that actually kind of takes me to an interesting direction here, because I was thinking a lot about like, you know, all-time artists and stuff like that. And I thought of the movie Ray, which is like the biography of Ray Charles. So like, you've just mentioned a drummer with one arm, Ray Charles, blind, great singer, piano player, right? Any other artists who are like the most difficult career that they like persevered through?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good one. Another one that I saw today that's, you know, very, very similar to Ray Charles was Stevie Wonder. Like same kind of concept, right? Was blind and amazing singer, lots of soul to his voice and lots of like energy to his music. Like those two in comparison are very, very similar types. And then of course the drummer for Def Leppard, which I can't even remember his name, but Brian, can you think of any that?
I don't know. I feel like just seeing this, a lot of artists and musicians will start from areas of struggle, you know? I think it's especially prevalent in the hip hop and rap community. You see like how that kind of started in the 80s and 90s. A lot of them, they'll rap about their experience with drugs or like in bad neighborhoods that they grew up in. So I think it's interesting how that's like gotten more to mainstream music now. And then like even back in the rock days, like a lot of them struggled with things like addiction, stuff like that. So I feel like it's a common theme there.
I fully agree with that. So I obviously my mixes have a lot of rap and hip hop in it, and I grew up in the late 80s, early 90s. And so like I was around during what they call kind of the golden era of rap and hip hop with Tupac and Biggie and Nas and
New York, yeah.
The kind of the New York style that came up because Tupac was originally from New York, and a lot of people he's a California rapper, but he wasn't necessarily for very long. But like all that brings up an interesting theory of like music in general, and you know people always argue about like the best music came from hardship. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking that was my research part, and that was what I had thought about a lot was during the hardest times in our history, especially in American history, I argue that's when the best music actually came out and derived from as a whole music, not just like individual stories or individual musicians. But I fully agree. Like the best rappers that I can think of are the ones that dealt with the most stuff, like a story to tell. And that's what rap is rhythm and poetry. And so like they have that best poetic story to tell about their life or what's going on.
So I'm going to reopen a conversation that we have had before, and I want to get Joey involved because he's Brian, so he'll know a lot about this.
Here we go. So, I know exactly what's going to happen. I can tell right now where you're going with this.
Was it Cardi B we were talking about, or Missy Elliott? Which one was it?
It was Cardi B.
Okay, Cardi B. Okay, here we go. So we were talking about how the best music comes through hardship. That's what, like, how rap started. And Old kept saying that, like, oh, back in the 90s when rappers were actually from the streets, they had great music. Now all of a sudden, you have Cardi B who's just rapping about being a stripper, so her music is trash. So I said, how is being a stripper not living through hardship the same way being a drug dealer is?
Yeah, I would say that's kind of fair. But do you know a little bit more of a background of how Cardi B started, Jack?
No, not remotely. But that has nothing to do with my argument.
Okay, so there's a show called Love and Hip Hop. Have you heard of it?
Okay, I've heard of that.
Yeah, that platform was pretty much how she got famous in that, just like from that show, because she was on that show. And then because there's if you don't, J. Cole, rapper, he had a song recently in the last 2 years called 1985, where he he was talking smack to all the young kids who just rap about like drugs and lean, you know, and like he was like trying to diss Lil Pump, if you know him, who's just like some white kid with like dreads and like purple hair. And he was just basically dissing him. And some other young rapper that I like called YBN Corday came back at him and said Cardi B got rich from Love and Hip Hop. So it's kind of just saying like you could use that stuff, you know, to get rich. But yeah, like, and there's also a lot about Cardi B. Some people think she's an industry plant and not like really part of the struggle, as you'd say.
All right. Well, when you bring information into the story, it's not arguments. So like this is why you're a good guest, because I know that you actually know things like this and you have
Appreciate it.
a catalog in your brain of like rap and hip hop knowledge.
Yeah, I care about music too much.
So I think that's a great point in regards to like knowing the whole story behind stuff. But I think where I struggle with it, that I argued with Bald over there, is Cardi B, based off of the information you just provided too, is it's very similar to kind of the Kardashians, something similar to that type of story where there's not really a hardship per se coming on, but you have a persona, you have an image that you can sell, and that's all you have is just that image. And that was the argument I was trying to bring to Bald, was that why Cardi B is successful is because she brings a certain image forward, and it doesn't feel as authentic as maybe it could be. And that's what you got from the 80s and 90s from hip hop and rap, is that it felt very authentic. And if you look at the stories of a lot of those artists from back in those days, like here's an example, like Tupac is probably one of my favorites, if not my favorite, is he grew up in New York City, and his mom was part of the Black Panthers. His mom was in prison with him in utero. Like grew up where they had to mom had to work multiple jobs and was into drug use and the whole thing. And then he got out of that environment and was able to go into Juilliard and learn classical training and all that kind of stuff at an early age. And so it's interesting to see someone come from that and to see the passion not only in the singing, but the writing of the music and all that comes with it.
I think that's where the writing comes in too. I pretty firmly believe that Cardi B is in a room with 5 to 10 guys and girls in suits, and they're like, okay, how can we have this beat from this producer? How can we make a hit from this? And how can we get these 11 songs out? Similar to how you say the Kardashians, they're in a room at their house singing, okay, how could we play this trip to the spa today into some drama? We have to engineer something for the show this week. And it's kind of similar in that regard, and I definitely agree, not as real. There are artists out there who are real, obviously, and are writing about that, but some of the more popular ones today are not.
Okay, then I will ask you this. And also, the way she got famous does not affect the struggles that she had early in her life. I will qualify that.
Agree.
But, okay, so who are the real ones, Joey?
Today?
There's not
I think you're looking at, if you're thinking about rap and hip hop, one that's pretty obvious, Kendrick Lamar. I mean, he's kind of into it. He's had 3 really popular albums at this point, and pretty much everyone's just waiting for him. He came from Compton, California, and his most recent album from 2017, Damn, he basically summarized his entire experience with that. And and he explained some of his past from his father and the dude who helped him come up in rap. And then I would say kind of the antithesis to that would be Drake. He's probably the biggest artist right now. And he's kind of to a point where he's just engineering stuff to see what's popular at this point. He's not really talking about his story. He had his story was basically he was a suburban kid and he was biracial early on, but now it's kind of you've had so many albums that he's just oh, let's see if I can make a song that kids on TikTok will dance to.
Yeah, I definitely, I think you hit it on with that. I think the only one that I would add to that in this particular genre, he's kind of on his way out, I would say. It still does a little bit, was Eminem. One of the more authentic. Now, early on, his early stuff was very like goofy, and that was good stuff and needed at the time, but his older stuff was better in terms of like authenticity of the music, what he was rapping about.
Yeah.
Stuff. But that guy, I mean, he struggled for years on the streets and like rapping in random bars and clubs for like 10 years until he was discovered by another OG, right? Dre just kind of saw a random tape of him and was like, we got to get this guy.
So let's go down the Eminem vein for a second, because I've also had this conversation with Joey and I want to hear you chime in. But we talked about how many albums and how many records Eminem has sold and how like his numbers like on face value make him like number one all time. So we were just looking at it as like, this is like, how is this not proof to people that there's like racism in the music industry? Because you can't say that he's 5 times better than the second best person, even though he has 5 times more sales.
So yeah, like he has had, I think, a couple, maybe just one diamond rap albums, and that doesn't really happen, for rappers, especially. Like a diamond album is very rare. It was like I believe it's 10 million sold, and yeah, like compared to other rappers, like if you get double or triple platinum, that's amazing nowadays, and even in the 2000s. So I think it's like definitely like he has that advantage. He's gonna cater to the majority a lot easier than your artist who has black skin.
Yeah, I agree to an extent. I think obviously people tend to gravitate towards somebody that they can relate to. Regardless, that's what you do in music, because you gravitate to a sound, you gravitate to someone that looks a certain way. I mean, that's why, they made these jokes recently about like Taylor Swift. Don't even get me started on her, but like there was like this commercial that was out that she says this closet full of the same sweater.
They're cardigans, okay?
Cardigans, yeah, sorry. Pull over. No, it's a cardigan, but thank you.
Nice.
I had to throw that line out there. But that's the idea is, and it's too bad that that's the case, but that crossover tended to be easier for him. But I don't think it undervalues his artistry, because I think I would place him in my top 10 for sure. Mm-hmm. Not number 1, probably top 5, but not, yeah. And that would be that's a really hard list for me to come up with, honestly.
Does it undervalue him? No. But does it undervalue other people? Yes, in my opinion. I think that like he gets like radio play that other people would never get.
Well, here, prime example of that is somebody like Macklemore, right? So
he's not that good.
Had little bursts of things, but lyrically, the content that he provides is insightful, right? So I don't know about the flow all the time and all those kinds of things, but the lyrical content and the insightfulness from that is he does a really good job of that. But I don't think he would have been relevant if Eminem hadn't come along. And so I think there are some that wouldn't have been relevant if it wasn't for Eminem. Because I think if Macklemore would have come out before, if they would have switched places, you wouldn't see it in the light that you do right now. I think people would be like, well, Macklemore was the first white rapper, and this is the way he raps, which is a little less brash, especially early on Eminem stuff. And then Eminem comes out and they're like, well, we don't want to listen to that. I think I would be curious to know if those two roles timeline-wise were flipped, what that would look like.
So let's stay on that vein, because you almost made rankings. I'm not going to ask you two to rank. I will not have rankings because I know nothing about rap, except obviously Young Thug is number 1.
Yeah, duh.
That's all I know, like, obviously. But you're both going to create a Mount Rushmore of rappers. So not in order of 1 through 4. Just you're creating a Mount Rushmore. You need 4 rappers on there. Who are the 4?
That's tough.
Do you want to go first, Coach?
Ooh, that's tough.
So I can think.
I'll try. I can get a couple on there. It's going to be really hard when I get down to the last 2, I think. But I think you have to put Nas on there. I think he's one of the greatest and still continues like longevity and been doing it since the early stages. I think he's got to go on there. I have to put Tupac on there because I still think he's one of the best of all time. Those 2 for sure I can throw on there. But then there's so many, like I would argue Rakim he might be my number 1. Funny enough, I don't know that I would put Biggie in the top 5 and in the top 4. We were saying 4, right? Because it's Mount Rushmore. So
Yeah.
4. Oof. That 4th one's going to be tough. I'm going to have to wait on my 4th. I've got 3 that I feel pretty confident about. But
Okay.
hold off. I'm gonna let Brian go and then I'll.
Okay. So just kind of explain this. I think it'd help if I explain kind of how I listen to music. So a lot of people don't listen to albums really anymore. I feel like in the modern age, there's a lot of playlists. A lot of people just shuffle through they make their playlists. Like I have playlists that I listen to, but how I always listen to music the last 5 years, usually I'll put on an album and listen to the whole thing. I really like that. And I think it shows a lot about an artist if they can make a whole album I want to listen to, not just, I like 3 songs off your 75-minute album. Like that kind of just, for some people are okay with that. They're like, I really like these 3 songs, but I'm like, I want 3/4 of that to be very enjoyable for me. So with that in mind, first I'm going to put Tupac just because you kind of have to have him on there. It's a good combination. I've listened to a good amount of his projects, and I just think the impact he had is unquestioned. Second, I'd put Jay-Z in there. So he's someone that's up there, but I feel like his impact in making rap into the commercial beast it is today cannot be understated, and just the kind of salesman he is. Not to mention, I recently just listened to all 13 of his albums because I do discography reviews basically. And I think his stuff is kind of underrated, even though he was one of the most popular. My third one I'm going to put in there. A lot of people aren't going to like this from a technical rapping standpoint. You might not think he belongs in there, but from a rap artist standpoint, it's Kanye. And I just think he has the best collection of discography out there, for any artist. And I'd put his albums up against anyone's, any artist. And then a 4th one up there, I'm going to throw Nas in there just because his impact in the early 90s and kind of getting rap going. So yeah, I'd say Nas, Tupac, Jay-Z, and then the one that I know Coach Moss doesn't like, and Kanye.
Well, okay. So it's not that I don't like him.
He just doesn't like the noise those kids are making these days.
I don't like the noise these kids are making these days. I will say I like his older stuff before he turned super crazy. I did like his older stuff, and you can't deny his producing as well. So it's not just his rap. Yeah. I think the number of albums that he's produced and helped other rappers come along, I could be interested to see that tree of people that have had success because of him. I'd be curious. So I had to think about it a little bit more. I finally got my 4th. This one you may not even have listened to. So Big Daddy Kane. Gotta listen to some Big Daddy Kane, man. Sometime if you've ever, it's got to be in your top 4. I had to think about it because I had it between him. I really like Jadakiss, and then who else did I have on that list? Andre.
Oh, I forgot him.
Andre 3000, man, that dude.
Yeah.
Stuff lyrically, also what they did with music videos with Outcast.
Yeah.
He's right on that bubble, but I had to put Big Daddy Kane in there for sure. So it was really hard
about Andre 3000 and Outcast. They're another one that speaks to versatility, kind of just what they did from the 10 years they were together.
They did so many different concepts. It wasn't just the same album. Every album was different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some others I don't know. I'm trying to like, I'm drawing a blank on like some others that I'd throw like up there in the realm. Some that I like a lot, A Tribe Called Quest, like I'd put kind of up there. They were very good. I would,
Groups. We can go
yeah.
into groups, but
And then I would say like Eminem like definitely deserves to be in the conversation too. Like just his first couple albums, you know, just how great they were. Then another one that like kind of changed the game that I don't like as much, but a lot of people will mention is 50 Cent, which is funny. He had a couple good albums there.
see, he may not have come along if it wasn't for M. I mean, he's one that came up from within that same system. Yeah, I mean, I think it was hard for me to keep him out too, Eminem, just like because he has done so many great things. I mean, he was known to like, and still is known to like just carry a thesaurus around with him everywhere and study a thesaurus to like figure out different rhyming patterns and stuff, which is, who does that? Like, do most rappers do that? I don't think so. I mean, I think they generally try to come up with an idea, but like,
He's just a nerd.
to actually dive in with a thesaurus.
All I know is I love MM.
Oh, MM, dude.
MM is so good.
All right. So you can be a part of the conversation then. What's your genre? What's your go-to, Bald? What do you typically, what's on the playlist?
So, and according to the data on like my Spotify Wrapped, which was kind of why I thought this would be good timing to do this because everyone's looking at their Spotify Wrapped statistics right now. So
What's Spotify? What's that?
it's like the radio, but on your computer.
Oh, got it.
Yep. They might come out with one for the newspaper soon. I'm not sure. But my top genre was actually rock, which, like, does that really describe what I listen to? Not really. I mean, my artists are Hozier, Shawn Mendes, Sammy Ray, who's lesser known, Rex Orange County, and probably like Walk the Moon, maybe. And like those are artists who have songs that are considered to be like rock, and like it's those songs of theirs that I like the most. So that's probably why that genre comes off, but they're not necessarily rock artists, you know, like.
Yeah.
And this is a good chance for me to segue, and because I will, like, my Shawn Mendes fandom is often like, I joke about it, but I'll explain in a more serious way why his new album that just came out is not good. So when he was making his biggest hits, like Treat You Better and Mercy and Nothing Holding Me Back and Stitches and like, you know, the list goes on, obviously. I Know What You Did Last Summer. Like, those are all songs where like he's a pop singer who is making like rock songs for the radio when the radio was in an era of being like very slow, and like the most played songs were like Ed Sheeran songs and like Taylor Swift songs. So he stood out a lot as like when you're like flipping through the radio, it's like you weren't sick of it when you heard it. So like that's why I was like, okay, like I like his music because it's like it's pop music in terms of like it's catchy, it's not super meaningful or thought-provoking, like you mindlessly listen to it, but like it was a change of pace from like what was on the radio at the time. So that's why I really liked it. And his new album that he just came out with is kind of trash because in no way does he like reference any kind of like rock motif. He's like more like on an artistic journey, and it's very flowy, and like there's a lot of like echoey reverb and stuff. It's just disappointing. I was looking for bangers and there were none to be had.
No bangers on it.
None.
I don't listen to a lot of Shawn Mendes. I think I've listened to one or two songs, but don't ask me what they were.
That's the thing is you would know most of them if you heard them. You'd be like, oh, this? Like, yeah, that's Shawn
probably.
Oh,
That's
this
probably. I'll put one on my iPod. Listen to it. Find one on the radio.
And he's a good performer too, because I've been to 2 of his shows, and he puts on a really good show. So like he has that going for him. But this next album does not seem like it would be exciting to see live. So
I'm glad you mentioned that. That'd be a good topic to discuss a little bit. Is we were just talking about rap and hip hop, and to be honest, most of the live things I've seen from rap and hip hop are not as entertaining. Like it's I love it in terms of a genre to listen to on a daily basis, but like live, take it or leave it, honestly.
Yeah, it definitely sounds a lot better like in headphones, you know, when you're listening to rap. I don't think it was a genre that was meant to be performed live in a lot of aspects. I think like rap battles, like the traditional route of rap were, but like
Yes,
rap that's like meant to be used through production and like various like basses and stuff like that. I don't see that as a live genre.
completely agree. Like I think that the genres, the other musical genres tend to do really well in terms of live, but rock probably is one of the best in regard to that. And that was the whole musical basis behind rock anyway, was jam bands in the garage and like just doing, and it all was that live type set stuff where you can pour your emotion into the music. And you know, like everybody talks about like Queen and the big concerts they would put on and how much emotion that Freddie Mercury had, and like and those particular artists did better on the road than maybe they did in sales in general, just because they were so good on the road. They'd sell out these 100,000 plus stadiums. So
Well, it's also interesting now because like they now given streaming and everything, artists don't make as much money from their actual music online, and because streams and people don't really buy albums anymore. So most money you kind of have to tour and do live shows to make money nowadays. So it's actually more important, even though I think like a lot of artists aren't that great at it.
that's a good point.
That's like one thing that I've kind of developed in the last couple of years is like I used to think like, wow, this is really auto-tuned, like that sucks. Like I bet they can't do this live. Well, in like the grand scheme of things, like that's the point of the studio, is that like, hit this 1 second segment and just like go all out and like let's make it as good as possible, and then we'll put all those together and then make a great song. It's like, if I was an artist, why wouldn't I do that? Also, like, why wouldn't I put out my best version? So a lot of times it's like, yeah, some of it's auto-tuned and that makes it sound better. But also, if you gave an artist 10 tries to hit like every note perfectly in a line, they can do it perfectly once. Whereas like live, they're just not going to take the risk. So they're going to bring it down like a key or something just to like make it manageable. And that's why a lot of things don't sound good live. But like, that's not like everyone who goes to a live show, for the most part, unless you're talking about like, boy band or something, like everyone's kind of hammered when they're there anyway. So like, they're not like, wait a minute, there's a few semitones off. What the hell? Like,
well, yeah, true. But people will also like critique the words in a song at a live concert. Like I've caught myself doing that, where I'll be like, well, that's not the words. What are you doing? So it's interesting. I was watching a retrospect on Lauryn Hill, which in my opinion is one of the greatest female rapper / R&B artists of all time. But
I got Megan Thee Stallion, but go ahead.
Burned out too soon. Oh my gosh. Okay. Anyway, so she was going on about people were criticizing her about changing the words of some of her songs in her later years doing concerts. And she was quoted as saying, yeah, occasionally I'll change some of the words or some of the flow of the words just to freshen things up. Because you got to imagine, I mean, think about a group like the Rolling Stones, who still do concerts. Mm-hmm. After 50 years of singing the same song 50 times every year, that's kind of a great part about concerts, live concerts, is you get to see a new iteration of an old song.
That's kind of like how slang will change like over time, certain greetings, from generation to generation. And like if you change something up once, then from time to time it just slowly changes, and then like all of a sudden the word is different than like when you actually wrote the song. So, like there's a lot of just different aspects that can change things over time. And I also think it's really funny when bands like that are like 75, 80-year-old guys just walking up on stage and they perform their song and they can still kill it. It's kind of cool.
100%. I think that's awesome. We were talking, I don't know if you and me that were talking, I was talking to somebody else about a live show. And one of the live shows I saw in college was, I'm embarrassed to say, the headliner was Nickelback.
Nice.
Yeah. But so Nickelback was kind of average, you know, like you go in and there's not a lot of passion involved. They did fireworks and the whole thing, so that was kind of cool. But beyond that, like there wasn't a lot of passion involved. It was one of those. There was this old Simpsons episode where these guys get up, I don't remember what band it was, and they get up and they play, and then they go, "Thank you," and then they look at their arm, and he's got a whole bunch of cities listed, and they're crossed out. Cincinnati. That's what it felt like when he was like, "Thank you, Cedar Falls." And you're reminded of where he was. But the two bands before it had tons of energy and tons of passion because at the time they were brand new to the scene and they were trying to like, it was 3 Days Grace and Trapped. And at the time they were like brand new and they had so much energy. Like the Trapped guitarist like broke his guitar and off the stage and like just really passionate behind the music. And it's almost more fun to see those new acts as they're getting started and showing their passion than when they get big. And so that's what the underlying premise of some of this conversation we're having is authenticity and passion. To me, are probably the most important. What keep me tied to an artist is not necessarily somebody that's sold out and truly does it for the full-on passion of the music. You know, like I can't think of somebody. That's why I like Amos Lee so much. He isn't in it to make billions of dollars, and he said it, you know, a ton of times that like he just loves the music. He loves to tour. He loves to just write music and sing and be live on stage. And so you take somebody like that, and then somebody like a Taylor Swift who has, you know, way over the moon doing all these things. I think that the music on this side tends to be a little bit more authentic and clear and better. And
well, especially when you write all your own songs too, because that's like such a rare thing for people who are like super popular to write all of their songs that like someone wrote a song for me, then I'm just supposed to go out on stage and perform it. Like how into it am I really going to be no matter how good of a song it is? I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. So like the smaller artists will always have that going for them. And if that's what you're into, then like, you know, like you're a music festival person probably who like would like to roam small stages.
Well, and that's what you can see from like ghostwriters and things like that. Like look at artists like Britney Spears, great example of that, right? Of everything had been written for her in first album. It was so poppy and she hated it. And Christina Aguilera was like that, and Pink was like that. A lot of the female artists that tends to happen to is the males in the industry take over and like, we're going to write this and we're going to tell you how you should look and create the image for them. And then they like burn out or never quite get to where they wanted to get to in the industry because they're just pushed.
So, okay. This is a good turning point. So in that case, each of you can list who you think the most underrated artist is that you listen to.
Can I grab my phone for this? I gotta look.
I did not research. You're throwing questions out, and
they're hard questions. But
most underrated artist?
Most like I have artists that I listen to because like I typically like when I have the aux cord, people are usually pissed. So like the music I listen to, I think most of the things I listen to are underrated.
I like your music, Jack.
Thanks, man.
And I think a lot of the stuff that you listed off with, like you said, you had a lot of rock, you know, it said you listened to a lot of rock. I would describe it as alternative, you know, like anything in that kind of, in that area of things.
I just struggle with calling it alternative because, like, to use the phrase alternative is just like, then what is it? Like, it's not, yeah, like, I'm not listening to anything like too experimental in that respect. And a lot of people who are like actually fans of alternative, like, would probably take exception to me being like, yeah, I listen to Hosier, like, I'm alternative, like, like, it's kind of a catch-all term in my opinion. So I don't use that, but
I have a couple. So one is, and I may have mentioned him already, is Amos Lee. I really love his stuff. He writes all his own music. He's done. My wife and I have seen him in concert a couple of times. One of them was at Red Rocks Amphitheater. So it's an outdoor amphitheater that's carved into the mountainside. That was really awesome. He did that with the Colorado Symphony, which is really cool. So I think that's one. I have a couple of other that are very hippie based that I like a lot. One is called the Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros that I really love.
They have that one good song, Home. Right?
Yeah, look at that. Yeah, that's a good song. That's a good. I know the story behind that whole song, but they're very hippie based. I mean, they've kind of got the soul of like the '60s hippies and very passionate within their music, and they bring a lot of instruments, and everybody in the band gets involved in every aspect of making the music, and it's pretty interesting. So I like those two, but I mean, there's tons of others out there that's just that particular genre. I don't know.
No, from that band, what was it, Edward Sharpe? That from that song Home, you kind of feel that like hominess to it, like that they get everyone involved. It's like just the way that song works out.
Yeah, that particular song was actually based on true stories. So the man and the woman that are singing in the song, the two main people, they had gotten into a relationship, and she like fell out of a window or something, and then he took her to the hospital, and then he told her he loved her, and this whole thing. And so like that's part of that song lumped into that. Home is just, home is where you are, and that kind of thing is really good. But then there's, again, I say they're hippie because a lot of their songs are very politically based. Mm-hmm. They do a lot of songs they have a song called Uncomfortable where they discuss within the song like uncomfortable current events. And I think I'm big into messages from artists. And so that's where I think a lot of times those messages can be undervalued or if you're not a big time artist, people will just kind of like push that out to the side because it's too controversial. Mm-hmm. Even if it is, that's why rap got a bad image early on, is because the messages were built around crime and drugs and, all those kinds of things. So that's what I gravitate towards, is like true, like authentic messaging and something that'll grab me.
Realness. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say going for like underrated. Right now, I'm just gonna list a bunch of people that I think are underrated because I can't just pick one. But like these don't count as being underrated at all. But I just think because they're older, they're not as appreciated as they could be as like let's say the Beatles. Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, I love.
Good.
Just like the Jersey Boys, the movie, the play, the Broadway show, they're awesome. But then like their music is great, and I think like Frankie Valli might be in like contention for one of the best voices out there. This high pitched little thing, and then just another old artist that he's huge. Like I don't even know why I'm calling him underrated, but Billy Joel I think is awesome and underappreciated. And then in some of the genres I listen to,
do you mean like underrated generationally, maybe?
Maybe like
as in like he doesn't seem to be like a timeless person, but like he's huge.
But like his shows are like he sells out like huge shows like at Wrigley Field and in New York all the time. So it's like it's hard for me to just be like, oh yeah, he's underrated, even though he probably makes so much money and is really popular. If that makes sense. And then other ones, I listen to a good amount of like old punk rock, like your Blink 182 kind of stuff. And like one band that I think is pretty good is Simple Plan. Like they wrote the song called "I'm Just a Kid." And I think like they have the music that they could have been a lot bigger. And then another band called Newfound Glory, which I really like. And then one current artist, he's a newer artist. His name's Leon Bridges. He has a soul sound.
Oh, love Leon Bridges.
He's awesome. And like he hasn't really he's not big, he's not too small, but like he's not big. And like I think his stuff could be like the way he writes his stuff and performs and sings just amazing. It feels like you're in a time capsule and you listen to him like you're in like the 50s or 60s or something.
Yeah, one of the first songs I heard from him was on Big Little Lies or whatever, that River song.
Oh
Love
yeah,
that song.
very good song. The first one I heard was Coming Home, like that on his first album. And like I was just like, holy crap, like this dude is like kind of my age. Like what?
Yeah, right. He sounds like he's older and like it's like 40 years ago.
Mhm.
It doesn't sound like it was made recently.
Yeah.
Nice.
Also, another one I have. Sorry, Jack, to cut you off, but I like Rex Orange County isn't small. We obviously know, but like I think he like could be like with some of his stuff like one of the biggest artists on the planet, and I'm almost surprised that he's not. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think there's like other things like going on there. Like it might just be like who he is as a person or something.
Yeah.
But like his music is good enough to be there. And like obviously like he got famous early on and like he got famous like working with Tyler the Creator, right? Like
Yeah.
and that helped him a lot. But then like after that he came out with really good music. And like for some reason he didn't take off. But like yeah, I think that I don't know if he's underrated, but like I think the right amount of people probably know him. But I agree, like he definitely could be bigger if like one or two chips probably fell a different way. I don't know what they are, but like some people get famous on a lot worse situations than that.
It's probably just like same with you and me looking at it when you see like some artists like that we talked about have less authenticity to like the way they make music, and I'm like, how is this guy not here? How is this guy not here? Like, oh, he deserves to be like bigger than a Drake or something like that.
Well, yeah, and some of them they may deserve that, and sometimes it's like luck, right? So it's who's marketing for you, who's your agent, who's your go-to person, and are they selling out? Have they been put in a position to do it, but they've been told, okay, you got to do X, Y, and Z, and they're like, no. Like Macklemore wrote a song on that where he didn't want to do that. He wanted to do it on his own because he went in and they said, okay, we're going to keep. You're going to get 7% to split with Ryan, and then he's like, no, I'm good.
So I'm gonna have a couple like actual underrated, and then something that might be a little more controversial. But so Sammy Ray, who's one of my current favorite artists, like she just popped up on my Discover, and she's got like a ton of really good stuff, and like a lot of her stuff has like strong like saxophone to it, so it's like jazzy rock kind of stuff, and it's just like interesting and different. And she's got like very like powerful gritty vocals. That's what I like about her. I think that the Kooks are underrated. I really like the Kooks, and I think like they could be much bigger than they are because they have so many good songs that like just slip under the radar in my opinion. Like I feel like Arctic Monkeys gets more love than them, even though like I think the Kooks does Arctic Monkeys better than Arctic Monkeys does. And then my controversial thing is I'm just gonna say underrated a lot of country artists because country is one of those genres where people will just be like, country? Hell no, turn it off. But then it's like, I think that if everyone like listened to like good country and like that doesn't, I'm not saying like that's one thing or another, but like there's kind of something for everybody in different like pockets of country music. So like certain artists get like 0 plays from the general population, even though they wrote like a genuinely good song with like, you know, great vocals and stuff like that. But there's just like so many really good country artists that will like never be anywhere close to as famous as like a pop star who had someone write a song for them and then they just like stand on stage and lip sync it. Like, that's kind of sad. I think country is like, it has its moments for sure. It's like mood music for me, or like summertime music a lot of the time. But like, if people gave it more of a chance, then those people would probably stand out and like maybe have a chance to like expose the world to like better, different types of music. I think Kane Brown kind of does that a little bit because like he's like country, but then he like made that song with Marshmello, and then people are like, oh, who's Kane Brown? And he has some like actual country songs that people kind of liked after that.
You know, I know you're directed at me when you make those comments because you know it's a lot of country music.
Is it directed at you? Yes, but it's also directed at like 60% of people. I feel like there's a ton of people who think that.
I do think there is some good country music. I'm not saying that there isn't good country music out there. That's just not true. But I think for me as a genre, I can't get into it as much because I don't notice the subtle differences between musicians within country music. And it's probably because I just don't listen to any really at all. So I don't get to kind of distinguish the subtleties, the differences between them. But it got I like some of the older stuff. And again, that's just me being old probably, because there got to be too much crossover between country and rock or country and pop. And the genre kind of lost its way a little bit. Like it separated into too many different avenues that I kind of lost track of it, right? Because it used to be like country was Garth Brooks and Alan Jackson and Conway Twitty and, you know, like, so it was country, you knew it was country. And I don't mind a lot of that stuff, but then it turned into, and you could argue that it was probably Garth Brooks that started to really turn it into more rock based stuff, but that's my opinion.
Well, I also think that like to listen to like a country song, like most people, as soon as they hear it, they associate it with like honky tonk kind of country songs where like a lot of times the lyrics are like that in country songs, but like people are kind of just like listening. It's confirmation bias at a certain point. They're just listening for that part to make fun of, and then they associate it with certain things. Where if like you listen to the same thing, the same way like people like listen to rap and they're like, oh wow, a song about drugs and strippers, and they'll turn it off. Like I feel like it's the same thing, just on different ends of the spectrum. Like both genres, like if I spent more time listening to rap, then I would find more things that I like. Same way, like if I spent more time listening to country that I initially was just like, dude, this is just a song about a tractor, like I might be like, oh, it's actually kind of a good song, you know?
True. I think you're right. That's pretty well spot on that.
Be open-minded. That's what I say.
Well, so I guess I did a little research without meaning to. I was listening to a podcast by Andrew Duckworth and the Freakonomics guy. They did one. It's like no stupid questions or something like that, and they did it based around musical tendencies. And the idea was that people, there was this research study that was done over the course of 10 years on musical tendencies among people. And so it was obviously a longitudinal study that they did with people. And they found that by the age of 25, you've locked in your musical tendencies that you're going to essentially have. And you're a lot less willing to bring in new genres or new ideas until you get to being in like your middle ages, so 40s and 50s. Then you start to calm your musical tendencies down a little bit. So you get a little bit more into contemporary calming music, you know, that kind of stuff. But it starts out when you're youth, you want something that's a little bit rebellious, loud, energetic, something you can dance to, you know, that kind of stuff. And then it evolves into more, you know, that authenticity, more into like something that sounds good. And then it turns into, okay, something that's a little more free and calming. And then maybe you sprinkle in some of the old stuff that you listen to be nostalgic. But it was an interesting, I read a little bit of the article behind it because I was curious, but it's interesting since I am not 25, I am older than that.
Significantly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Seasoned.
So what you're
Marinated.
saying, so Coach, what you're saying is I have to get as much listening in the next 2 years as I possibly can before everything's set in stone for life.
Yeah. So long story short, yeah, you need to, both you guys should probably get on that. You're bald. You're getting really close, my friend.
Yeah, I'm already like 24 and a quarter.
You have, so for the next 9 months, all random music, all kinds of eclectic stuff.
Or what I could do, and Joey, you like this, I could listen to nothing but Cotton Eye Joe for the next over 10 months. And then for the rest of my life, I will only like Cotton Eye Joe.
Could be. There was another research behind that too. It's funny, but they actually discussed that concept, like a song that is, you know, pretty much terrible. If you listen to it over and over and over, you'll start to catch little notes. You'll nod your head to it, and you'll start to have an appreciation for the song, even if it's a bad song. So like, I don't know how many times, and you said this to me when we were in one of our long car rides together, where you were listening to the song, you're like, that was okay. And then I've listened to it like 5 or 6 times. Now it's really grown on me. And like, that's why that happens, is we naturally gravitate. We'll start to pick up notes and chords and things that like we enjoy and can kind of nod to and get along with. And we're like, oh, okay, this song's pretty good. So that's probably,
I think that's why like album listening is valuable. And like Joey, that's probably why you like so many things and like have found so many things, because you listen to the whole album. And like a song that I won't ever like look at a second time because I don't listen to albums, like you'll hear it a few times and you'll probably pick up on that more.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's like, it's kind of why and also like I don't want my music to be like set in stone, you know? So I'll consciously be like, all right, I'm listening to too much rap, you know, like I got to get something else in here. And like, it's why I went from listening to all of Nas's albums to all of Jay-Z's albums to all of Taylor Swift's albums in the last 3 weeks, because I kind of want a good variety in there.
So I love that you do that, because that Bald doesn't do that. And I'm sure there are a lot of people that don't do that, don't actually listen to full albums, because when the digital age came across, and I'm old enough to remember all of them, all of the ages, that was
Stone Age like.
That's very stoned. Everybody was stoned. It was interesting when that came about, because so I was in high school when Napster became a thing, and that was the first one, right? Well, there were actually like random websites where you could download MP3s and stuff, but then Napster like showcased it and was able to get it out a little bit more frequently. People were sharing music really easily. But that was the biggest worry initially with artists, was people aren't going to listen to my album. First of all, they're not going to buy any of my music, and they're not going to listen to my full album. They're just going to find the popular songs and download those. And so it's, especially now with Spotify and everything, people just pick and choose the songs that they like from a particular artist, and they don't listen to the whole album. There's, I don't know, maybe hidden songs or songs that you found in albums that you're like, wow, this is a great song that nobody else thinks is a great song because they haven't listened to it. So that was, we used to, when Napster first came out, we would make all kinds of mixes, and I had friends that we did the opposite of finding the popular songs. We wanted to find the different mixes that you couldn't find, like that a DJ got a hold of it and did his new mix on a song, or like a hidden, we found like hidden songs. Like there was a time when Biggie and Tupac rapped on a song together. It was called Runnin', and it was about running from the the Police, and so like they talked within the song and about their relationship a little bit. But that was an interesting that you can't find on any album. It's just like out there. So I think that was one positive to the digital age early on when it came to downloading stuff. And now you can't do that anymore because of sharing has become a lot harder.
Yeah.
But
So I have a few like this or that pop music like preference questions. It's like pop and like classic, timeless musicians. So it's artists, okay? So we can kind of rapid fire this and we can take some time on the interesting ones. Up to you guys. But I'll just start out. I'll throw a couple out and then you pick your preference. So number one is going to be Queen or The Who.
Queen.
I'm also Queen. But let us know in the comments also. You got Michael Jackson and Prince.
That one is really hard. You gave me that one before. I'm gonna go different. I'm gonna go Prince.
I'm an MJ guy. I haven't listened to enough Prince, if I'm being honest.
I also just don't think like pretty much anyone could match the stardom of Michael Jackson. So like I think that rivalry is like very hyped up, and like in some circles it's probably a big deal, but like to the mainstream circle like me, I think Michael Jackson. So I'm gonna go with that.
I gotta say I love Michael. I've listened to every single one of Michael's songs that I can get my hands on. I love his moves. I love his music videos. I love all that kind of stuff. But if we're talking in terms of like truly authentic, passionate, I gotta go with Prince.
Yeah, that's not like surprising to me to hear you pick that either. So this one might be a little trickier, but I've got Frank Sinatra and Ray Charles.
Man, that one.
3 for a loop for sure. That was my goal. Nope, no ties.
I'm gonna have to go with Frank just because being honest, I'll stick with my Italian brethren, but like I have not listened to like Ray Charles really at all. And I know history about him and stuff, but like I just haven't really listened to him a lot.
This is tough. I don't know. You're gonna have to go before me.
All right, I'll go first. I'm gonna say Ray Charles to make you split the tie, but also because I think Ray Charles. I think that like obviously Frank Sinatra is like a timeless like classic in his talent and stuff like that, but like he's famous because like of the like silky tone of his voice and stuff like that, and like it was just perfect for the era he was in. I also think like you don't need a ton of range to do what he does, so like the talent level is high to do what he does, not necessarily. So I'm gonna go with Ray Charles for that reason, because of like the energy and like the it factor that's like kind of intangible. You can't really match what Ray Charles did as much as like there's a million Frank Sinatra impersonators who can do a great job.
Yeah, it's very cool. Like I could really go either way, but I'll say Ray. Because a lot of the things that you just said, I think I'll sort of stick with. But I mean, I could go either way with it. I think I would be more apt to pull out my iPod, or turn on the Spotify and have a Ray Charles song pop up that I would enjoy, depending, no matter what mood I was in. And I think Sinatra is great, but you have to be in a certain mood to listen to Sinatra. And so I think that's the difference maker for me.
I agree with that. Also, I'm not Italian, so obviously I like Ray Charles because all non-Italians like Ray Charles.
I'm not Italian either.
I'm not sure if the data supports that, but I have a strong feeling.
Dude, what are you trying to imply?
I'm just saying. I don't know if the data supports it. I'm just saying.
It's fair.
All right, couple more. I've got Rihanna and Beyonce.
I'll be Queen Bee.
That was an easy decision for you. Okay, interesting.
I'm gonna go with Rihanna. Kind of a shocker, but I don't know. It's close. It's close.
I respect it because I don't think it should be that much of a shocker. I think like Beyonce's fame just snowballed to a point where like she can just put out an album of her just like breathing and everyone's gonna like lose their minds. So like I think she's very talented, and when I say that she's overrated, I'm not saying that she's not good. I think she's one of the most talented people ever, but like she is overhyped for sure. So
Dude, she's still working it at her age, man.
I'm
That's
still
the other
gonna
part.
take her. I still take her over Rihanna, but I just wanted to throw that out there. That's my hot take.
I don't think I think some of her hits are great, like especially earlier, but like I don't think some of her recent albums have been really well critically received, and I don't know if it's as warranted as it should be.
That's kind of where I'm at with it. Okay, Bruno Mars or Ed Sheeran?
Bruno Mars.
Yeah, I'll probably go Bruno Mars.
Okay, I didn't expect it to go that way, but I was gonna go Ed Sheeran.
So Jack, I would say this is the category of two guys that are very popular, mainstream, like make pop music, and you could say they get an unnecessary amount of hate, even though I think they're both like real artists and they both make good music, and like they're not like really fake in any way.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think like obviously Bruno Mars music like doesn't seem as authentic just because of like the genre that it is kind of, but like he just does stay like true to like what he's always done. So you got to give him that.
The talent is there. Like you can't deny his voice is awesome.
All right, I got two more. I've got Taylor Swift and Ariana Grande.
I'm not going first on this one.
The body of work, like I said, I'm literally just finished Taylor Swift's like my discography full listen. Her body of work is kind of like unprecedented in my opinion. I think Ariana Grande actually has a better voice, like pretty much by far, but I think Taylor Swift's music is better.
Joey, I agree with everything you said except the answer. So everything you said except Ariana Grande, because she's a far superior vocalist.
I'm going to go with Ariana Grande as well.
I can tell you had strong opinions on that one.
I'm just not a T Swift fan. I think, yeah, I'm just going to leave it with that. There's so much more we could expand upon on that. But
and that's how a grumpy old man receives Taylor Swift. There you go.
I think she's way overly hyped. I think she does it herself. She has a great PR manager, and they created a brand for her, and she has that brand, and she lives up to the brand, and good for her. And she makes money, and she sells out shows, and she does a good job. So she's got a really good publicist and a really good marketer and brander and all that kind of stuff. And I again, agent. But I'm going to talk about unauthentic.
Coach, have you listened to her most recent album?
What's that?
Have you listened to Taylor Swift's most recent album?
Oh yeah, I have it on repeat.
Oh.
No.
It's pretty good. I would give it a listen.
We'll see. Carly will play it in the office sometime.
It's pretty real, I would say.
I know you're a critical person, so that actually makes me want to listen to it now. Not a critical person, but you think critically. How's that?
Yeah.
I think it's hard to. I do need to be more open-minded. I will try, but it would be hard because I already have preconceived notions. So.
You like 5.5. But I have one more, and this one makes sense mostly. I feel like if you're in my generation. So last one is Panic at the Disco versus Fall Out Boy.
Aren't they the same person?
This is not as tough as I feel like you might think it is. I would say Fall Out Boy.
Like easily Fall Out Boy?
More easily than I feel like. I feel like people will think this is close, but I think Fall Out Boy is a good amount better.
Okay, interesting. I was gonna say I say Fall Out Boy, but also like they just don't have any longevity when you compare them to Panic at the Disco. So like they have
Fall Out Boy. Yeah, I like Fall Out Boy. I like the story behind them a little bit too. Right, a bunch of boys from Harvard that dropped out, and started a band. I think that's kind of cool in my mind. But it's kind of like a Damn the Man sort of thing. We love the music. We're gonna follow that. I love their titles. The titles to their songs too are pretty interesting.
They're awesome.
That too.
Long titles.
Is that all we got?
That's all my preloaded questions.
I have one more thing that we could just say, like one artist and or one song that you'd like anyone listening or our fellow speakers to go listen to, just suggestions.
Parting gift, perhaps. Okay,
Yeah.
Well, why don't you start since you are our number one fan and you're imparting your fellow fans with your wishes.
I'm gonna go for artists. This isn't really much in the spirit of music. It might be a slap in the face in some respects, but go listen to Weird Al Yankovic and his stuff because I think it's funny, and I think he's actually very talented.
So, did you came up with this segment to plug Weird Al?
Yeah.
I don't even know where to go with that.
Wow.
Well, you kind of look like him right now with the mustache thing going on, but
that was awesome. I did not see that coming at all.
I'm trying to go through my list because I got lots of songs that I'm listening to right now, lots of eclectic stuff. But
I've got one, and it's actually a cover. So this song is a cover of "Creep" by Scott Bradlee's Postmodern Jukebox and Haley Reinhart. So to me, it's like the best cover I've ever heard. And yeah, I'm not going to talk that much about it, but just give it a listen. And this might not be good for its case, but I heard it once at a bar and I was like, dude, who is covering this right now? And I like stopped what I was doing and I was like, I got to Shazam this. And I've listened to it like at least weekly for the past like year and a half since that happened. So best cover ever, Creep by Scott Bradlee's Postmodern Jukebox and Haley Reinhart.
I think I heard that actually. It came up on my radio, my truck. So it was like on coffee house radio or whatever on XM, and that
it's very coffee house, but powerful coffee house.
It's good. It's a good song. I have a couple. I have two that came to mind that I really enjoy right now. One is a cover. So the song is "Hey Ya" from Outcast, but Obidiah Parker does an acoustic version of it that is very good. It's like a slow acoustic version of the song "Hey Ya." Obidiah Parker, do that. That one's really, really good. The other one, and I'm on an acoustic trip, is Stone Temple Pilots' acoustic version of the song called "Plush." Fantastic. It's a solo acoustic version with Scott Stapp. Or not Scott Stapp, with, what's his name? The guy that was their lead singer that got kicked out of the band. Anyway, it's with him. So just look that up. Stone Temple Pilots, the acoustic version of that. Those are my two songs right now.
Put those links in the description.
Ooh, link in the description. We haven't done that yet.
There's a lot that we still have to work out kinks wise. Maybe that's why we need a producer.
We're not big time YouTubers, but if you're a producer and you're looking for very low paid work, Comment
Very
down
low.
below. Some
You guys
might
need-
say like illegally low.
You need merch. Get the merch going.
We need some Bob merch.
Just get like $10,000 worth of merch and see if it sells.
It's an investment in our future.
Absolutely, we should do that. Put it on the card.
Sorry guys, we
could
can't go to
sell-
meets this year. We used everything up.
Yeah, we'll just use it on the budget. Yeah, that'll go over well.
Just imagine the upside, though.
Yeah.
I don't know about the overhead on that. Well, good show. Longest show ever. Quite literally.
One of our more serious shows for sure.
Yeah. So again, we're always looking for new ideas, new concepts to discuss. We're looking forward to having our next show next week. We're getting really close to our 200 mark to be able to do the live Star Wars episode. We will tell you, we've had some discussions about that. That Star Wars one will be fairly long, and we're going to bring on multiple guests for that. We'd like to do a live YouTube show. So watch this latest episode, push us over 200. We'll do that live deal. Everybody, thank you. Again, this has been Banter. I'm old.
I'm bald.
And
I
he's
guess I'm Brian.
Brian. Thanks. We'll see you next week.